Done right now. Well, hello, Gillen, wherever you're hearing this, in North America, in the Philippines, in Australia, in Malaysia, and in Singapore. This is the 12th in the Rubies and Above series, and tonight's guest is Leanne Banga from a small town in Saskatchewan, in the middle of this enormous prairie part of Canada. Leanne has a very interesting story, and I'm going to let her tell most of it. I'll ask just a few questions because I don't have much voice left after this last week. So, Leanne, come out and say hi to the folks and tell us a little bit about where you have been all this time and what you were doing before you got into Igalen. Where are you, Leanne? Leanne, are you there?
You have to unmute her, John.
Well, there, I did it.
Okay, there you are. Come on. Come on out.
Hello, everybody. Okay. Well, I grew up on a family farm. It was mixed farming, both grain and livestock. And I have 7 siblings. I was the middle child, and I am a very solid representation of the middle child syndrome. I play that role very well. I can remember that we had no running water and a wood stove to cook on. We had TV with 2 channels, and it was black and white. We had lots of chores. We grew up poor. My mother went out to work into home care and eventually a care home. I can remember her sitting at the table. She always baked homemade bread, and I can remember her sitting at the table, and there'd be loaves of bread in the oven, and some on the table cooling, and she'd be sitting at the table studying at whatever age it was, in her 40s. She was studying to get her special care aid designation. So we all worked hard, us as children as well. And that is what instilled a strong work ethics in me as a child, and then as an adult, I carry those same values, I would say, because of that. I believe I have taken on the perception or the notion that to always do more than what you get paid for as an investment in your future. And I can remember listening to Jim Rohn, his CDs, and I found myself to be very taken in by what he had to say. He really spoke to me, and that is definitely one of his quotes. And so I believe I've taken that type of work ethic along into my adult life, and he just reinforced it. At the age of 18, I got pregnant, and I was raised in a strict Catholic home, so this was devastating to my parents. And if you ever saw the billboard sign that says "pregnant, scared, and alone," that would be me. That pretty much sums it up where I was. I had a son, and I kept him, and this would be the only child that I would ever have. So I have to, there we are.
Nice.
His father returned into my life, but it did not last long. He was an alcoholic, and I eventually left. At this time, I was waitressing a couple jobs. I decided to go back to school. I took night classes to attain office education diploma. And my son was 3 months old when I started, and he was 4 years old when I finished. So I missed a lot of his formative years. I was lucky I had a younger sister that would come and babysit for me night times so that I could go to school, because there's no way I could have afforded a sitter day and night. So I was fortunate to get a job at the local potash mine, which has now they merged, it's now Mosaic, same place Kelly works, who's my sponsor. And while I was going to school, and I was still going to school at that time. So now I could quit the waitressing jobs and I could just have one full-time job, which was an absolute miracle. A very good paying job with benefits, and I could support the two of us very decently. We weren't rich by any means, but at least it wasn't as tough as it is for many people who work minimum wage jobs. So I'm very, very blessed. I started in the labor crew there, and so using pick and shovel. So my work as a teen on the farm that come in handy for the physical labor of this job. I eventually got an office job at the potash mine, what I was going to school for, and I could stay on straight days, and that was really important to me as a single mom not to go on to shift work. So the years progressed. I was desperate to find love and give my son a family unit. That was important to me. I wanted that desperately, really to the point I guess I was blind. I ended up marrying a man that I thought was as committed as I was, and turned out I was wrong. And the marriage lasted 5 years, or less than 5 years. And he was an alcoholic. So does anyone see a pattern here besides me? I guess if there's one thing, I'm consistent. All of these painful, disappointing experiences left me with depression, anxiety, stress, low self-esteem, which is something I have battled with now my entire adult life. So now I'm I'm now a divorcee. I'm, now in that group. I decided that if I can't find a good man, I'm going to try raise a good man. So I focused on raising my son, and he never ended up in too much trouble. He graduated high school, went on to post-secondary school, and he acquired a journeyman ticket as a machinist. He's employed, contributing to society, and he got married 2 years ago. So I can kind of chalk that one up to say nailed it. That was success. So that's a happy success story for me. And I kind of have to note that all those years that he was growing up, I tucked aside the family allowance check, the government family allowance check I got every month. I tucked that aside, and by the time he graduated, I had enough that I could pay for his school, his room and board, the trade tools that he needed, and money for a car. So it really goes to show that little bit every month, what it can add up to over a long time. So while I was raising my son during this time, I decided I'm going to go back to school again, and I attained my Microsoft Office expert level, and I started teaching Microsoft Office classes at Parkland College and then my place of employment, Mosaic. So I've been at Mosaic 26 years, and in that time here, again, I decided I'm going to go back to school in the fall of 2014, and I graduated November 2016 with a diploma in supply chain management. And one of my classes was communication skills, public speaking, and presentation skills. And at the time, I had to take the class. It was a class that you had to take in order to graduate. At the time, I was thought to myself, when will I ever use this? And so, hindsight's 2020. God was preparing me for what was to come across my life, come across my path. I just didn't know it yet. Also, throughout my adult life, I've volunteered for community organizations, Connects, Lioness, volunteer fire department, charity golf, and I've both taught dance and I've taken dance class, everything from ballroom, jazz, Celtic, belly dance, and currently I'm taking Latin salsa classes. I drive about 2.5 hours to go to class, and dance makes me smile and makes me happy. So I can't say I've ever seen anyone frown on a dance floor. So I guess now that brings me to my Igalen journey. So you would have met me in Vancouver. So October 10th, 2016, Thanksgiving Monday. Thanksgiving is my very favorite holiday of all time. And we had a tragedy in our life. My youngest brother was killed in a fatal plane crash.
Hmm.
And so just so you get an idea where I was, I'm going to say emotionally, mentally. So this is just a little bit of words that what I was able to, I think, try to put together to give you an understanding. And this is what brings me to Galen, and that's the part where everything changed. So this last Thanksgiving, I flew out and went up to the crash site, and as a part of healing and maybe closure, I'm not totally sure. So this is what I said. Today I embark on the last leg of this journey. Thanksgiving Monday will be a year since you left us. As I reflect on this year, I find it hard to put into words what has all happened. I clearly remember the moment I was told you were gone. It felt as if my heart stopped and I couldn't breathe. The force of the waves of grief pulled me down and held me under, and I didn't think I would ever get my head above the water. It seemed like I was watching my own self drown slowly. Between the black skies and my red eyes, I could barely see, and all I could do was just breathe in and breathe out. The world around me spun out of control, and I knew I must stay standing and just breathe. For if I didn't, this storm would take me down to the depths of despair that could have no return for me. If nothing else, just these two things, just do these two things, and surely the storm will pass. It would have been easy, so easy to turn to alcohol or drugs to numb the pain. It would have been so easy to get angry or bitter or self-destructive or selfish or damage self-respect. It would have been so easy to just quit hoping, quit talking, quit laughing, quit living. Trust me, I wanted to do easy, but every day I got up and got dressed and put one foot in front of the other. I had to, but I guess the majority of people have to.
Are you done with that piece?
No, there
Oh.
was still there were still meals to make and dishes to do and a house to clean, and I had school to finish and the volunteer groups that I made commitments to, and my mom and dad, and can't forget mom and dad with their surgeries or health problems last year. But somehow I made it through the dark, cold winter, and when the spring thaw came, I was still standing and still breathing. So then, I'm not going to say all of it, but then I go on to just at the end. So as of tomorrow, I will now have met the 3 agencies that responded to your plane crash. CFB 19 Wing Comox, SAR 442, BC Air Ambulance, and the Chaco SAR team. Complete strangers who answered the call, who pledged to return to safety victims of disaster and do so for no personal gain or public recognition. I have met such incredibly humble, courageous, selfish heroes who risk their lives and do what they do so that others may live. So tomorrow I'm going to where it all happened, just to be still and know. Even as Dad lay in the hospital, I know you are near him, and I must take this walk. It is something I must do to bring deeper healing, some closure, and a start to the beginning of the end. This is the celebration of life, whether it is yours and the memories you have left me, or mine and the lessons I have learned on this journey. I will be there, and you will see me, still standing, still breathing. So
can I just stop you for a minute?
Yeah.
Well, I had a good cry. And I'm claiming the first dance in Vegas. Okay?
I have to tell you, John, I have a reputation for trying to lead and not follow, but I'll let you lead.
I'm too big for you to try and lead. Okay,
So,
keep going.
So Kelly and I work at the same place, and then I seen her at work one day, and this is what I carried in me all winter. And when I seen Kelly, she had a glow. She had a glow to her face and a light in her eyes, and she looked alive. And it was everything I desperately needed. It was probably clinging on for my own dear life. I was so broken inside. And we started the conversation, and I just told her that, like, wow, you look so good. You look, uh, she did. She looked alive, and I knew where I was. And so she told me what she was doing, what she was taking, and I pretty much signed up then and there. My first 7 days. So sorry. So throughout the winter, my doctor kept upping my antidepressants, kept giving me more and more, take more and more. And I can't say, all they did was what they did was numb me, and they probably kept me from being suicidal, I guess. Not that I was really suicidal. I mean, maybe I remember saying the words, like, I wish I could just die. And it's not that I really certainly wish that. I think it was, I just wanted the pain to stop, and I didn't know how to escape the pain. But so my antidepressants I was taking lots. He was giving me sleeping pills. I would maybe sleep for a couple hours, and it would knock me out good. But then I was awake, and I would lay awake, and I just would have horrible nightmares it was a very horrific plane crash. Sorry, there's people who don't know. There was 5 people in that plane. My brother was a pilot. He was killed, and there was 4 survivors. And I'm friends with the 4 survivors, so we have discussed little bit over time frame what I could mentally handle. There's only so much I could take of, don't tell me too much, because I will see what I can actually handle. So I think I kind of got lost here, but so yes, my sleeping pills, I was taking those. I would sleep for a couple hours, and then I just lay awake, and it was a constant, the fatigue, I can't even explain. I can't explain. I don't know. I think my vehicle is what the future of the vehicles were, because somehow it drove to and from work, and I don't recall the drive. I don't. I was here but not here, and it was that way for months and months. So my first 7 days on on Emulin, and you know what, my past history, all I could ever focus on was wanting to be skinny. So like, I just want to lose weight. And I went on diets and off diets, and I would lose weight, and I'd feel great, and you'd get compliments, and that would rock my world. And then you go off that, and okay, I put it all back on, and then I'd feel like a failure. And so this time it wasn't even a case of losing weight. I didn't care. What I wanted, what I needed desperately, was some sleep. I needed sleep, and maybe some hope. And so first 7 days that I started on Emulin, and I'm being generous by saying 7 days, because I want to say day 3, I can recall saying, oh my God, that was the most incredible sleep I ever had. And I could hardly wait for bedtime tonight. And that is not something I experienced. I think I've been sleep deprived for 20 some years, just my journey of single mom, and you work and you're going to school, and I was sleep deprived for 20 some years. And so, yeah, I had amazing sleep. The brain fog, the fatigue really started to lift, and I had energy. And those 3 things alone, that would be what I would say. If you can't sell somebody on that, we have chronic fatigue in this world, and that was a game. That was the game. No, sorry, that was the life changer for me. It wasn't a game changer. That changed my life. And so I'm still on Emulin, of course, and July. So now I'm 3 months, and I'm going into my fourth month on Emulin, and I end up feeling quite dizzy and not feeling overly well with the dizziness. And so I contacted Dr. Eugene and explained to him what I was feeling. And we talked about the medication I was on. By this time I was off the sleeping pills, but I was still on antidepressants. And so he told me to to cut my antidepressants back and do this every week and then basically it was, well, call me the end of the month. And I know that he knew what was going to happen for me. By the end of July, I stopped taking antidepressants and I haven't taken one since. And regardless, smiles, tears, sadness, joy, those are all feelings, and I get to feel it all. And so is coping. And I hated the side effects of antidepressants. I always did. I was on those for about 3 decades, almost 3 decades. It was back from the time that my son was born, after my son was born. So that's almost 3 decades of antidepressants. And I can honestly say I've never felt better. I've never felt more alive. So that is, I'm going to say, my Galen journey. So now the presentations at that class that I took, that I kind of, was turned up my nose and said, why do I have to take this? So how is that serving me? Well, it's serving me quite well. Little did I know that I'd be standing up in front of, so Kelly and I have, so Kelly Dom's my sponsor, and truly my success is for the most part has a great deal to do with her support and helping me. I didn't get here myself. So we have embarked on taking in some health and wellness expos, a few of them now. So of course, I'm the type of person that wants to be prepared. And so I started to do a lot of research, and I actually have been researching sugar for quite a while. There's a history of diabetes in my family, so I knew that it was something I had to be careful of. So I started to do research, and on the Ditto Talk, and this was before that came out, because the Ditto Talk came out the day before we were going to our first Health and Wellness Expo. So I had already had our presentation ready that we were going to give there, and so I had the 180 pounds of sugar, because it's like, yeah, it's in my presentation. I researched it already, so I was impressed that, okay, yeah, what I am grasping what are the important talking points, or what to point out to people. So interesting things. So I ended up finding the history back on sugar, the consumption of sugar over the past 300 years. In 1700, dating back then, the average person consumed 4 pounds of sugar per year. And then that brings us to current time, this 2016, we all, in the Ditto Talk, we know that people are consuming 180 pounds of sugar per year. That is, that translates to half a pound of sugar per day for a person. The equivalent, so this, I guess, all right, this would be some of my teaching points to people then. The equivalent of, one soda pop a day is the equivalent of 50 pounds of sugar. And a lot of us give that to our children. Children, pop is like water. So that's a lot of pounds in sugar. I also have found information to share with people about some of our fast foods, or what we consider to be quick foods. The oatmeal's got 3 3/4 teaspoons of sugar in a bowl, and flavored yogurt is 5 teaspoons per half a cup. A dinner that's this Healthy Choices dinner, if you look in your frozen food section, the Healthy Choices Gourmet Steamers dinner, 5.5 teaspoons per serving. So the American Heart Association, so this is when we're at expos and I'm talking to people, I'll tell them these facts and numbers, that this is how much sugar is in some of these products. And I said, do you realize that the American Heart Association recommends that women have no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar per day and men 9? So if we take that Healthy Choice dinner, that's, we as a consumer, it's labeled healthy, we buy into that. And that's not, on our part, it's being misrepresented. The advertising is not being honest. It's labeled healthy. We read that, we think we're making a healthy choice, when in fact that's 5.5 teaspoons. If a woman's to consume 6 teaspoons in a day, she's almost at her 100% limit and of what's recommended. And we haven't even talked about snacks and breakfast, or your whether you eat this as a lunch meal or a dinner time, but there's still another meal in there. We haven't even taken that into account. I was also able to share with them the rise of sugar consumption dating back from 1960. That from 1960, and this would the figures show to 2009. The graph I had, that as sugar consumption rose, so did diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. And I show them the graph how there's a direct link. And then the sugar and diabetes graph that I have, and this will just blow your mind. So in 1890, there was 3 people out of every 100,000 that were diabetic. And so then when I ran the figures for 2016, I actually had to, because we're using 100,000 people as our math, like the amount. There was 3 out of 100,000. So in 2016, this is U.S. of course, because we compare everything to U.S. So that's fine. We'll compare this as well. So in the U.S., I had to take the number of people and what the diabetes is amount today, and then reduce it to get what it is per 100,000. It is almost 9,000 people per 100,000. And the increase, and I just got to show you this, the increase, and I wish my investments would do this. So from 3 people out of 100,000 to almost 9,000 out of 100,000 increase in diabetes. It is a 299,866% increase in diabetes. So I share this with people, and they their jaws drop.
Leanne, what's your point?
What's my point? My point is we're eating too much sugar.
We know that. We're on the same trip together.
Yeah.
You know, this is why we're all in Caitlin. I'm glad that you're discovering all these amazing foods, sharing them as well as you are.
I have, and you know what? I wanted to go to these things prepared.
Yeah, good
and
for you.
Be able to tell people the numbers, because it's important.
So if there was a teaching moment out of all this, can I presume that know your facts is your style?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
There is.
So listen, we're almost at half an hour, and usually we try and keep it under 40 minutes at all. And we usually like to have a few people ask some questions. Are you okay with that?
You bet.
All right. So if you want to ask a question, the bottom left hand, mute, the microphone, just unmute yourself and come out and ask a question if you don't mind. Don't all jump at once. Come on, Debbie, you're always good for a question.
Yeah, actually, Leanne, I'm kind of blown away by your story and things. There's so many things going through my mind, and I would like to spend some time with you in Vegas.
You can have the second dance.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. No, I'm very impressed with obviously your work ethic, and your growing up served you well, obviously. And I'm just very grateful that you have found something that has turned your life around, and you can apply everything that you've been through and focus that now into something positive. And I think you're definitely on the right track, and you're going to make a big difference for a lot of people. So I don't really have a question. I just have
admiration.
Admiration, that's the word I was looking for. Yes, very much so.
Okay. Anybody else? Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, me too.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi. I the same thing as Debbie. I've worked with Leanne. Again, we work at the same company, and I've worked with Leanne.
With your hair down.
I know. You know what? It's curly today. I did nothing with it.
I had no idea who you were.
Yeah, I have natural curly hair, so it's kind of doing its own thing. Leanne and I have got to spend a lot of time together traveling and doing wellness shows, and we feel that investing into this company is where we're going to get um, the bonus later. And sharing the story and listening to Leanne talk, she has such great passion. And, I agree with Debbie how, just listening to her story has came out and helping her now. And we've had lots of fun together. And I think we've had laughters right from the belly that we can't even explain to people. They don't even understand what we mean by that.
Just
But
our road trip could be said Thelma and Louise. That says it all.
yeah, and just meeting people. What Leanne and I have shared throughout this and discussing some of the conversations with people is amazing. And Leanne has definitely done her research. And Leanne's a joy to work with. Like Galen, like the product is what it is, and it's helping so many people. And Leanne has a fantastic testimony. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, was not asking any questions, but
Thank you.
saying that, Leanne's done a great job and she has such passion. So
Thank you very much, Kelly. Anybody else? Any question or comment for Leanne?
I have a question here. Thank you. Leanne, incredible story. And, one thing I just have a question about with regards to is the recommendation to come off your antidepressants. It's not something that I'm on, but I do have a lot of people close to me that are on it. And I know that they be frightened with the idea of coming off. What was, and I know it would be case by case, but how did you reduce to go to none at whatsoever? Was
Okay.
it over 1 month is what I understood?
Yeah, it was. So I was very, very dizzy. It was like my brain was like loose in my head, to be quite honest. So Emulin was doing its job by feeding the brain glucose. And so now the brain is working at optimum. And when you take antidepressants, it's because you are not producing, serotonin. So you take synthetic. And so now Emulin is working the way nature intended, exactly. They're those true words. And I was, so then I was also taking synthetic serotonin in an antidepressant, and it was too much. That's what was causing my dizziness. So
Right.
I cut it back by a quarter I cut it back a quarter the first week. And I had slight improvement, but my dizziness didn't totally go away. It was less days and less occurrences, but it still didn't go away. So then I stayed it was cut back a quarter of the dosage that week 1, and then I reduced it another quarter week 2. And by the time it was over 4 weeks, I was, what's the point of taking these? I just stopped taking them.
That's
Because
remarkable.
and my dizziness totally subsided, and I have not had a dizzy spell since. Not one.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
remarkable. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, April. Any other comments or questions?
I'd just like to say thanks, Leanne. And when we're down in Vegas, I'd like to meet with you and Kelly and talk about some of your things you're doing with groups. So
Thank you.
we can transport it down here to the Maritimes.
You bet.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, kiddo.
You're welcome.
So we've had 12 calls before the convention. This was the first tearjerker. And you guys saw me in the real mode. I didn't expect that would be today's outcome, but there you go. So, we're looking forward to a pretty dynamic, powerful experience coming up next week. Hope everybody is clear about what they want to achieve, and that you've got as many people coming with you as you were able to coerce or convince or cajole or whatever you had to do. And, we'll have a tremendous knowledge coming out of it with new products, new experiences, meeting new friends. So we're all looking forward to that. Obviously, during that experience, we'll do some talking with management, with the ownership, etc., to see whether we continue these calls going forward or whether we change them. Obviously, after the convention, we'll do one or two recap calls for people who may not have been there. But listen, I thank everybody that's been on the calls up to now, and to you specifically tonight, Leanne, for being as honest as you have been. And what a powerful story. And listen, use this to your benefit as you're recruiting other people. People don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, your caring shows pretty well through all this. So thank you, everybody. If you have any last comments, go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording right now, and I'm going to unmute everybody. So there you go. Go ahead. You can still
Thank you,
talk.
Leanne, and thank you, John.
See you,
Okay,
Leanne.
guys.
Thanks,
See you
John.
in Vegas.
See you all really soon.
See you all soon.
Yes, I'm so
In Vegas.
excited. I
All right,
know.
everyone. We'll see you all in Vegas.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
2 minutes, Leanne. I'll
Bye,
be there.
everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm ending the meeting.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
John.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.